So on the 23rd of October, you'll be able to pick up the Heist DLC for Spider-Man. The Black Cat has been shown off as a major character in that DLC, so let's talk about her and find out more about her, shall we? Walter Hardy was a salesman on the surface and a famous cat burglar. Eventually, he stole one thing too many and was arrested for his crimes, but before he was locked up for the rest of his life, or presumably for the rest of his life at the time, he encourages his daughter, Felicia Hardy, to never accept second place no matter the situation. If she wanted to play basketball, she wouldn't just settle for being a cheerleader, but she would actually train and play the sport herself. As a college freshman, she survives an experience that makes her feel weak and pathetic. It was of a sexual nature, so I'll let you assume what that might have been, and thanks to this, she was motivated mostly by revenge. She trained in several different fighting styles and combat techniques, as well as gymnastics and other useful things that you might need in a fight. And eventually, she seeks out her wrongdoer, in this case it was a man called Ryan, or a teenager called Ryan, and unfortunately for her, he ends up dying in a drunk driving accident. So nasty stuff. She was pretty depressed and upset because she was robbed of her vengeance and decided to take the edge off by stealing things, following the footsteps of her father, and she got pretty good at it. So good that she stopped being just regular old Felicia Hardy and instead became the Black Cat.
Thanks for waiting till the last second.
Timing is everything. Here, let me do it. This takes muscle.
You're right. It did.
On her first night as the Black Cat, she tried to bust her father Walter out of prison. It's also on this night that she ends up meeting Spider-Man. One thing leads to another, but she does succeed in freeing Walter and reuniting him with his wife, her mother. And because he was terminally ill, he dies not long after that. Now, during her encounter with Spider-Man, she's able to trap Spider-Man under some sort of rubble, or she's able to escape a building and Spider-Man gets trapped. Now, Spider-Man eventually frees himself from the rubble, and Black Cat reveals her identity to her father, after which he more or less dies at her side. This prompts Black Cat to go on to fake her own death, and presumably that would have been the end of that, except Felicia felt something when she encountered Spider-Man, and even though, thanks to that past business we discussed, she wasn't a fan of men, she just couldn't stop thinking about this one Spider-Man. And so, to get his attention, she decided to do the only thing that she seemed to be good at that point, which was to, flaunt the fact that she was a bit of a villain. But eventually Spider-Man does see some redeemable qualities in her, and the two of them eventually form a relationship. One thing leads to another. Now she soon enough promises to leave that life behind, but it just wasn't in her nature to stop catburgling. And eventually she picks it up again. This could have been perhaps because she agreed to go to a mental correction facility, something along those lines, but broke free. But ultimately, all of this madness culminates in her faking her death again. She decides to get some redemption, so she tracks down a device that Dr. Octopus wanted to destroy the city with. The Owl wanted to use this very same device to hold the city hostage, and the Kingpin had the detonator. Now, Felicia, of course, steals this detonator and gives it to Spider-Man, but the Kingpin isn't pleased about this, so just bear that in mind. During this whole thing, Dr. Octopus has her pelted with bullets at some point, which means that she's put into hospital, and Spider-Man realizes that he really does truly care for Felicia. This also prompts him to reveal his identity as Peter Parker to Felicia, but that was a mistake because they realized that Felicia wasn't necessarily attracted to Peter as he was Spider-Man, and the sort of outward appearance that gave him. Of course, Peter wasn't exactly too pleased about this revelation, but he kept the relationship going anyway. She also runs into some business with the Kingpin, because as I said, the Kingpin wasn't pleased about losing that detonator, and some of the Marvel characters had experiments done on them to give them mutations and new abilities, and Felicia was no different. She gained enhanced strength and agility, retractable cat claws, things like that, but also the ability to manipulate luck. And it actually affected Spider-Man. This was the reason for their breakup, because they were growing further and further apart as far as Peter was concerned, and he just couldn't put up with it anymore and sort of left the relationship. This leads on to Peter getting framed for a murder he didn't commit, which he is eventually cleared of with the help of Felicia, but in that time, Felicia showed that she was really mad at Peter because of the breakup, but for some reason never revealed his identity to the public, and also essentially cheated on him to play with his mind a bit. Because she pretended that they were going to get back together when indeed she was with the person who was trying to destroy Peter's life by framing him for murder. Messy stuff, I know. But when Felicia's apartment is set ablaze, Peter does allow her to stay with him. Now, after all of that crazy business, and Peter finding out about the betrayal properly, Felicia decides to move to Paris. And of course, Peter clears his name. Peter then marries MJ, and at first, the three of them become enemies because Felicia can't accept the marriage to Mary Jane, but after some time, the three of them become friends and everything is hunky-dory. Also, at some time or another, Felicia does indeed lose her powers, the retractable cat claws, the enhanced agility and strength. But yeah. So in the game, we get the sense that they've probably already dated before, because Felicia is somewhat flirtatious with Peter. I mean, she seems to always talk to him in that way anyway, but even still, some of the lines seem to suggest that, they were together for a bit, We also know that, of course, Peter and MJ actually get back together and are in a relationship by the end of the game, so that could cause troubles for them with this DLC. But there should definitely be some sort of relationship drama in the DLC, purely because of how Felicia tends to interact with both Peter and Mary Jane and these sorts of things. But yes, that was more or less the video on Black Cat. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe and tell me. Are you looking forward to this new DLC? Do you like Black Cat as a character and was just hoping I'd cover her eventually? Tell me your thoughts in the comment section below, and until the next video, have a very good day. I've been Prime, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.